The story of Guild Wars 2 is full of many different story themes and styles of storytelling. We have big epic battles, emotional moments of loss and sadness, scary bad guys doing scary things, even some moments of lighthearted, silly fun. But sometimes if you dig deeper into the lore and story, you can uncover some pretty dark, creepy, and downright disturbing details in the game world. And that's what I'd like to draw attention to in this video. There are some interesting lore details about some pretty common topics that you may not have known, and some of them are pretty freaky to think about, so maybe after you learn about them, you'll wish you hadn't. I've explained many times before the situation with the Ascalonian ghosts. Adalbern cursed them, and now they are stuck to permanently haunt and defend the land that they used to live on. But there is one big ghost character that suffers a different fate, and has suffered it for a very long time since before the Foe Fire even happened. Murukai Doomlore's Bane. She is Ascalonian, but she's been a ghost since before the Human Char War. It's unclear exactly how long she's been dead for, but as far as the known lore is concerned, we've always known her to be a ghost. During the Ascalonian War, the Char stole treasure from the humans and stashed it away deep within the Cathedral of Flames. However, this treasure was cursed and it had souls of the dead that were bound to it, Murukai being one of those souls. Since she was a powerful necromancer when she was alive, she was able to emerge from the treasure and attack the Char, or anybody who came too close to the treasure. She was even able to control the other souls with her, forcing them to attack Char and human alike. Her ultimate goal being unleashing her storm of souls upon the living, which would unleash a massive wave of death. Now, Murukai's fate of being bound to this treasure might just be a fate worse than the Foe Fire. Foe Fire ghosts are controlled and kept alive by the Foe Fire curse. That curse is what gives them any kind of life force. It's what keeps them here on the mortal plane. If the curse were to be lifted, in theory they would be released and could rest and pass on into the mists, which could be possible. There are theories that the Foe Fire can be reversed, since it was caused by a magical reaction between Adalbern's crown and sword. Bringing the two back together might allow the curse to be lifted. In fact, Ridlock attempted to do this with his own sword, Sohothan, which is the twin sword to Adalbern's, however the attempt failed. Since Murukai is a ghost that predates the Foe Fire, she isn't affected by it in any way. Instead, she is bound to the cursed treasure by some other unknown curse. If the Foe Fire were to be reversed, Murukai would still be stuck as a ghost forever, haunting the ruins of the Cathedral of Flames. There is no knowledge at all about her curse, whether or not it could be lifted or where it even comes from. Her ghost origins are all unknown. She is forever stuck in this never-ending cycle of hatred, rising up every night only to be beaten back into submission. With no end in sight, not even a theoretical end like the Foe Fire, she will be stuck this way forever. If you have explored the Janthir Wilds areas, I'm sure you've encountered the Bog Queen. She is a boss in the lowland shore area. She will summon up maggots and reanimated corpses, and she'll try to flood the area with her death magic. She's a really creepy looking lady, but her backstory is just as creepy and disturbing as she is. The Bog Queen used to be a human necromancer by the name of Alicia. She was part of the White Mantle, while Sol D'Alessio was still the leader and the Mursat were still active on Tyria. In this area of Janthir, they were based in the town of Gavril, which is a town mostly made up of criminals and exiles from the mainland. The White Mantle would begin tricking these people to join them as initiates. Once the Mursat became hungry for more power, the White Mantle began sacrificing the villagers on the nearby Bloodstone so they could feed their masters, which resulted in a massive pileup of sacrificed dead bodies. The town of Gavril was pretty much massacred as some sick, twisted sacrifice to the Mursat. The Bog Queen Alicia was tasked with moving and hiding these bodies, so that way hopefully the remaining villagers would stay unaware to the mass sacrifice that happened. She could only hide so many bodies in the nearby houses before she had to find a more permanent hiding place for them, which she found in the bog over in Lowland Shore. She would begin transporting a massive amount of bodies to be dumped in the bog. There is an interesting note about her victims or minions. The bog bodies, they are based on a real thing. In real life, a bog is a type of wetland ecosystem that has lots of water and dead plant materials, often resulting in these really thick, deep, muddy grounds. In fact, Falling into a bog is really dangerous. You can sink in and get stuck. The organic chemicals that are produced inside of a bog can actually preserve a body really well. And a bog body is a term that refers to a body that has been preserved inside of a bog. And it does happen whether the victim fell in and died accidentally, or maybe if a body was dumped in a bog. But there are even some famous bog bodies that are on display in museums. Now back to the Bog Queen. Alicia was eventually overwhelmed with the amount of bodies she had to hide. After being denied assistance with her task, she would die in some unknown way, perhaps due to the stress of the whole situation, and her own body would fall into the bog the same way she had been dumping all the others. The lowland Coden would eventually notice bodies floating up to the surface of the bog, and they would tell their young stories of an evil witch called the Bog Queen. This was likely just an attempt to keep little ones away from the natural hazards of the bog, but they would get the surprise of a lifetime when the Bog Queen herself would rise up and summon her army of bog bodies to attack the land. It's probably hard to believe when you look at a bone skinner, but they actually used to be regular people. There is a dark and terrible corruption that can take place that will transform them into this horrible, hideous monster. It involves the dark magic that's in the aberrant forest that is connected to the Wolverine spirit of the wild that was corrupted by Jormag. Once the magic affects you, it begins to prey at your mind. Those who can't resist will become corrupted. It will trigger an insatiable hunger in its victims, causing them to go insane and turn to cannibalism. But no matter how much they consume, the hunger will not subside. They will continue to search for more prey, consuming more and more, desperate to fill this hunger. But the more they eat, the more the corruption takes hold, eventually transforming their body, mind, and soul until they are no longer the person they once were, but a bone skinner. Once they become a bone skinner, the hunger still does not subside. They are cursed to hunt prey forever to consume more power. The most common targets for bone skinner corruption is usually the Norn. However, it's thought that some of them may have been Codan. In fact, Bright Shore, a Codan merchant, had a friend who went missing in the forest. This friend is likely now a bone skinner, and Bright Shore himself is even hearing the whispers of corruption telling him to hunt and consume prey. But most disturbing of all, there is a Norn Vigil soldier that can be found in the forest, quietly whispering to himself with the dead bodies of his allies all around. But no sign of a battle at all, which could imply that this Norn is becoming corrupted and killed his allies himself, planning to eat in a desperate attempt to satisfy his hunger, which unfortunately we all know will never happen. In the Path of Fire story, we all know that Balthazar went to the desert in search of Kralkatorrik. He went alongside his army, which was called the Forged. If you've never looked at them up close, the Forged are metal constructs in a humanoid shape. They have fire magic infused in their bodies and are piloted by a soul of the dead. There are a few details about them and their backstory which makes them kinda disturbing and a little sad. It starts with the way that Balthazar created the Forged and what happens to a soul when it becomes forged. Balthazar needed a large army to pursue Kralkatorrik. He had his mercenaries and human followers, but that wasn't enough. He needed a lot more. He would learn a forgotten ritual, the same one that was used to create the Exalted, and he would alter it using his fire magic. The first group of Forged were taken from Balthazar's own realm, his eternal army. Using the ritual he learned, he would bind their souls to these forged bodies. But even still, he needed more. He forced the Forged army to attack any and all Alonians. Victims of this attack would have their souls ripped from their bodies and bound to a forged body. He would even rip souls from the domain of the lost, binding them as forged as well. But once a soul has been forged, it loses its free will. They are forced to worship Balthazar and follow his every command, no matter what it might be. Any disobedience or attempt to resist causes the soul extreme pain, which will only subside after following orders. And if that doesn't sound bad enough, it's said that the Forged actually keep their past memories. They remember who they were, their family and friends, their home, their job, everything about their life. But they are forced to carry out Balthazar's wishes. It is definitely possible that some Alonians who became Forged were forced to attack their former homes. Or even worse, attack their own friends and family, and be aware of doing it the whole time, but can do nothing to stop themselves. An example of this is the Herald of Balthazar. While we fight her, she mentions that she tried to resist, which would imply that she doesn't agree with what Balthazar is doing, and when she's defeated before dying, she begs us to kill Balthazar. If you know about the Herald and you know who she used to be, you probably know what kind of value she had in life, and killing innocents is something she would never do. If you don't know who she used to be, I've talked about it in a previous video, so it's there if you're interested. Well, that's going to be a wrap on this video. I'm sure there are a bunch more lore bits out there that are also creepy and disturbing, but for this video I just picked out a few to get us started. Maybe I can dive deeper and reveal more tales of the dark, twisted side of Guild Wars 2 lore. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video or found it interesting. Thank you very much for watching, and if you didn't know about this stuff, well, now you know.